There are two things you must do if you're trying to build your strongest core. And on this week's episode of the Exercises Health Podcast, it's exactly what we're going to be discussing. We're going to cue our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health Podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we are discussing the two things that you must do if you're trying to build your strongest core. If you just want your core to get a little bit stronger, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. But if you're trying to build your strongest core, there are two things that you must do, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. But I want to let you know that if what we are discussing in this conversation is of interest to you, if you would like our help applying what we talk about today, that is exactly what we can help you do at Muscle Activation Schaumburg using muscle activation techniques. Now, to see our availability, get on our schedule, and experience muscle activation techniques for yourself, all you have to do is go to www.matschaumburg.com, click the big green button that says Get Started, and then schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. So, like I said, we're talking about how do you build your strongest core? Not just like a stronger core in which there are all the options under the sun available to you. We're talking about your strongest core, and there are two things that you must do. And unfortunately, when it comes to doing these two things, most people skip out on at least one, if not both, within their workouts and within what they are doing throughout their daily life, throughout their week, throughout their month, and throughout their exercise career. And so because of that, most people feel like, oh, my core is just weak. My core is just weak. And then they'll try something that will help their core get a little bit stronger, but because they're not implementing these two things that helps their core get the strongest that it can get, they leave a lot of opportunity on the table to actually build a strong, well-functioning core. But you're not going to make that mistake anymore because we're going to teach you exactly what you need to do today.
That's right, Charlie. So let's jump in. So the first thing is you want to make sure the muscles of your core are activated. Now, for a lot of people, this is kind of a new concept because a lot of people haven't really heard about this. But all of our muscles are controlled and directed by our brain and our nervous system. It's very important that each and every muscle of your core is communicating well to your nervous system and to your brain, so that when you need to activate a muscle or use a muscle or squeeze a muscle or contract a muscle, that you can do it. And so what we do with muscle activation techniques is we check in with the muscles of your core to make sure that all the muscles of your core are as strong and active as they could be. So this first step is all about making sure muscles are available to you to use when you need them.
Exactly. Now, if you're hearing this, you're thinking, oh, good, like I do my core activation exercises. That's not what we're talking about, because there are a number of gurus out there selling all the different types of core activation exercises. Those actually aren't activating your core in the way that we are describing. What I mean by that is what those exercises are doing is getting you better at using the muscles that are already working well. Because those are the only muscles that your body can use, the ones that are already working well. So if you're doing your core activation exercises, you might feel that your core muscles are engaging more, which is great. That's super important. But it's not actually using the muscles that aren't working well. It's not getting the muscles that are underactive or that are not working well, working better, working to the point that you can use them during the exercise. It's basically just getting you better at compensating. And again, compensation is a good thing. It's a big part of being able to function throughout our daily life as a human. But if we're talking about building your strongest core, we need to make sure that we're not just getting the muscles that are already working well, working better, being able to become more aware and feel those muscles more. We need to make sure that the muscles that are underperforming, that aren't doing enough, that aren't working well, that are inhibited, that those muscles come to play the game with us as well. And that's exactly what we're able to help you do with muscle activation techniques. Now, what makes MAT so different is because while we're going through the MAT process, we're actually taking out your need to have to what's called volitionally control your muscles, or your need to have to voluntarily, consciously try to control your muscles, okay? Because the muscles that your body can consciously control are the ones that are already working well. We're looking at the muscles that unconsciously you're not able to access, and consciously you're not able to access as well. Those are the muscles that we're trying to tap into with muscle activation techniques. Get those muscles working better so they can become under your conscious control. And then when you go and do, your regular core activation exercises or just your regular exercises in general, now those muscles are available for your body to use. So you nailed it on the head, Julie. This step is about getting all of your core muscles available to use. And so when you go and try to strengthen them, you have a full team of muscles that are ready, that are available, that can do the task of doing the exercise. You're not just strengthening the muscles that are already working well, feeling those muscles contract more and say like, oh yeah, my core is really active now. No. We want all the muscles working well. That's what we're able to do with muscle activation techniques.
That's right. And a follow-up to this that most people are thinking after we talk about doing MAT is like, what are the signs and symptoms that your body tells you when you have like some severe activation issues that you need to get on the MAT table? So the first one is feeling weak. That one's kind of like, well, of course, yeah, for activating muscles, there might be weak ones. But some ones that kind of are interesting are you have tight muscles, and especially tight ones that come back all the time. So tight muscles are pulling really hard. They're squeezing really hard because there's other muscles that aren't squeezing hard at all or not squeezing at all. And so our bodies are always going to protect you. If you're like, for example, some of our golfers, they're like, man, every time I go and swing the club, my back tightens up and then I just have a tight low back all the time. Well, it's not because of lack of twisting in great motion. In fact, you already do that all the time. It's the fact that you have some that are working really well and they're working enough that they're now having to protect the underactive weak muscle. So another sign or symptom that you would feel is tightness. Another thing you might notice is imbalanced motion, meaning like, wow, I can really like twist really far this way, but I can barely twist the other way. Or I can bend really far this way, but I can't bend. Or limited motion, like I used to be able to touch my toes, or it seems like I should be able to touch my toes, but I can't. That is your body like stopping your motion on purpose because there's weak ones there. Your body never wants you to be vulnerable to injury. So it'd rather protect, tight, limit your motion than to just give you all the motion in the world. So those are some of the signs and symptoms that are hollering at you to get on the MAT table. Some other ones, especially in the core area, is going to be modified or less than perfect joint structure or other structures in your spine and in your core. Some examples of this are bulging discs, also bone spurs, also past surgical, experiences that you've had. So anything that changes the structure is an area where your body needs extra muscle support. And it's also usually an area that is calling for inflammation to the area, which always will inhibit muscle. So MAT is great. We know that everyone needs it, but if you're looking for like, well, do I really need that? Those are the signs and symptoms to look for in your core or your spine area to know like these are the signs that MAT is the thing for you.
Exactly. So that's step one, is to activate your muscles, specifically get the muscles that aren't working well, get them up to par, get them working better using muscle activation techniques. Step two, then we need to start challenging your core muscles directly, all right? Doing exercises that are very specific to challenging your core and challenging it throughout its full symptom-free range of motion. Now, we've said before on this podcast, we're going to review it again today, but there are 4 motions, primary motions of your core, and you need to be challenging each of those motions throughout your full symptom-free range of motion, all right? This is really important because what a lot of people do, a lot of people do 2 big things that end up leaving their core not as strong as it could be, okay? One is they tend to train their core in more of a neutral position. In fact, there's like a whole movement out there called like anti-abs or anti-core. And so it's like anti-rotation, anti-flexion, anti-extension, anti-side bend. And essentially you are training the muscles of your core to be in its, quote unquote, neutral position. And yes, you can certainly build strength there, and there's going to be some carryover into, more of that range of motion. The problem is nobody gets hurt in a neutral position. Nobody gets a bulging disc because their posture was perfect, right? You bulge your disc when you're outside of your quote unquote perfect posture, okay? And so we need to make sure that our muscles are strong throughout our entire range of motion, not only for the sake of our muscles, but for the sake of our spinal structures as well. The second big mistake that people make is they do core exercises that are more like using or involving the core versus ones that are like primarily focused on challenging the core. So a great one for this is like, okay, I'm going to do farmer carries to challenge my core. It's like, okay, yes, those certainly will, include the core muscles, but it's not going to be nearly as direct of a challenge as, say, like actually doing a side bend exercise, or is it, oh, we're going to do bird dogs or dead bugs or whatever insect or animal we're going to talk about, or Russian country want to name something, or Eastern European country, not Russian country, Eastern European country, where we're going to name an exercise after, and that's going to be our core work. It's like, okay, well, yes, those involve your core muscles. Your core muscles certainly used during them, but it's not an exercise that's specific, like directly challenging your core muscles. They're just kind of along for the ride, and you might feel it there, and that's fine and well. But if we're talking about building your strongest core, we need to make sure that we're directly challenging it. So again, the four motions are flexion, which is folding forward, extension, which is bending backwards, rotation, which is twisting and turning, side bending, which is bending side to side. One other point on this that I want to make before I pass it over to you, Julie, is I think Pilates and yoga falls into this category as well, as far as like doing exercise that uses your core, but doesn't really directly challenge your core. Now, Pilates, yoga people, chill out for a second, okay? Because you're going to sit there and be like, oh, well, I do my 100s or I do my 50s or whatever it is. Yeah. Oh, I'm holding plank all day. And that's all fine and well, but I'm just going to come out and say it. It's only going to make your core stronger if your core is already really weak to begin with. Because what you are training at some point, once you get good enough at doing those things, you're just training the endurance capabilities of it. You're not actually training the strength output. In order to train the strength output, you need to add load. You need to add challenge. That's not just from a time component perspective, okay? Yes, you say, okay, my plank went up from 30 seconds to 60 seconds and my core strength improved. You might even say, hey, my plank went up from 60 seconds to 5 minutes. But I've heard of people holding planks for like an hour, 2 hours, 20 hours at a time. Like, no joke, like world record, look it up. World record plank hold is some ridiculous amount. And it's like, okay, like at some point that's really not challenging the strength, it's just challenging the endurance. It's like, okay, yeah, if you struggle to run 1 mile, running, 1 mile and being able to then run, 2 miles, that may be an indication that like your legs got stronger. But being able to run a marathon is not necessarily indicative that your legs got stronger. You just have better endurance capabilities. And so we need to switch our mindset around that and understand that, yeah, there are activities that are generally deemed as like, hey, this is great for building my core strength. It's really only great to a point, and mostly that's like once your core actually gets strong, then it's not going to be that great at continuing to build the strength of your core, even if you're really feeling the exercises in your core muscles, because at some point we have to add challenge, we have to add load. I'm going to step off my box now.
That's exactly right. So, Charlie, I do want to add a third one in there. Okay, so first you talked about the anti-movement, meaning like we're doing anti-rotation, we're doing anti-flexion, right? And so a lot of these are maintaining your core stability and squeezing in neutral, right? And so, yes, it's great to be strong in neutral, but what we're saying is that you really need to be challenging the muscles of your core in larger movements. The second one Charlie brought up is core exercises that involve your core, right? So these are going to be, you might even take a whole class and you're like, wow, my core was active the whole time. Yeah, it was active, but we weren't directly challenging it, meaning we weren't directly challenging flexion. We weren't directly challenging extension. We weren't directly challenging side-to-side motion or side bending. We weren't directly challenging trunk rotation. There were parts of it, but we weren't doing like full motion and having a challenge against that, right? Because again, we want to see you strong, not just in the middle. We want to see you strong in your big ranges. That's where people, get injured and have all their weakness. And so you either train to be in the middle and try to live your life limiting your motions to stay in the middle, or you just say, hey, well, let's just get stronger in our big full ranges. Now, the one place where people work on their core, it's not even strength, but we categorize this in strength for some reason, their motion is when they're stretching. Right? So we do big core motion when we stretch. Think about like you sit down and you touch your toes and you stretch your back and your hamstrings and all that good stuff by touching your toes. Or you lay on your back and you twist all the way, all your fullest range to the twist, side bending, all the things. You guys know what I'm talking about. We're using our full range but with relaxation, right? So we want to be really careful of this. We want to switch this. We want to use full range of motion with contraction. In fact, we have 4 exercise for life principles. When you apply these 4 exercise for life principles, all of your exercises become safer, more effective, less negative side effects. You can build your strength without all that icky stuff that comes along with it. The first one is respect your full pain-free range of motion. So when you're doing your core exercises, let's just take a crunch, for example. You are going to crunch your entire range and you're going to keep crunching until you are at your fullest motion, but excludes all symptoms of tightness, pinching, funkiness, anything like, symptomatic other than muscle squeeze. It should be pain-free, symptom-free range of motion, including stretch-free. We should feel muscle contraction. So the third thing that I wanted to throw in there for, I guess, core strength, but I think we also can think about like kind of like core function and stuff like that, is not using full range of motion for only your stretching. In fact, switch your stretching to using full range of motion for your core motions in all the ranges, but respecting your full range of motion while listening for signs and symptoms that your body's asking you to stop the motion.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Julie. Now, that is our first exercise for life principle, using your full symptom-free range of motion. When it comes to training your core, that is a vital principle when you're trying to build your strongest core. Just to touch on them quickly, our other 3 exercise for life principles is number 2, to control your moving and non-moving segments. Essentially what this means is whatever parts of your body you want to move, have those be the only parts of your body that you're moving, which means all the parts of your body that you don't want to move, keep those absolutely still. Keep those locked in, keep those not moving while you're doing the exercise. That helps to keep the exercise very targeted, very direct with challenging the muscles that you are trying to challenge. Number 3 is to move slowly, okay? One of the easiest ways to get injured, especially while training your core, is to move too fast, okay? And so moving slowly is a crucial component, not only for keeping your core safe, but for really building your strength and really building your muscle output for your core and for the rest of your body as well. And so, Julie often says, and I completely agree with this, if you're working out in a commercial gym, you should be the slowest moving person in the gym when you're lifting your weights. And that's what we're talking about moving slowly. Essentially, if there is any point in time where you would need to stop moving, stop that exercise, you should be able to do that without having any momentum carry you farther into the range of motion. So that is exercise for life principle number 3. And then finally, exercise for life principle number 4 is to focus on squeezing your muscles, which means make that mind-muscle connection. Have that be the focus the entire time you're doing the exercise. If you're doing crunches, focus on squeezing your abs. If you're doing some kind of trunk rotation, focus on squeezing your obliques. If you're doing some kind of side bend, focus on squeezing the muscles on the side of your trunk. If you're doing some kind of back extension, focus on squeezing your spinal erectors. And then when you work with somebody, then you can get even more targeted as far as like where exactly you should be focused on squeezing. But as a general rule, like that will cover it for you. All right. So those are the 4 exercise for life principles. Number 1 is to use your full symptom-free range of motion. Number 2, control your moving and non-moving segments. Number 3 is to move slowly. And number 4 is to focus on squeezing your muscles. So if you're hearing this, you're like, okay, yeah, I know that I need to build a stronger core and I'm interested in building my strongest core. Remember, there are 2 steps that you need to follow. There are 2 things that you must do in order to build your strongest core. Number 1 is to get all the muscles of your core activated. And that's exactly what we can help you do with muscle activation techniques. Number 2 is to challenge those muscles directly through their full range of motion. And that is something that we can help you do as well in our studio Muscle Activation Schaumburg. So if you're interested in getting our guidance on helping you with both of these steps or either of these steps, again, all you have to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to www.matschaumburg.com. Click the big green button that says Get Started, and then schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is trying to strengthen their core? Share this episode with them so they can make sure they're including both of these steps throughout their workouts, throughout their week. Make sure that they're doing them on a regular basis. Number one, activating their core muscles. Number two, challenging them directly. And if you wouldn't mind, leave us that 5-star rating and review on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to us. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all those things. It really helps us spread our message. It helps more people find our message. So if you found value in this conversation, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Wishing you a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.